So slow march out. Steady. Future. Good on. Give me everyone. Breathe. Breathe here. Traveling with the wave. And like the tsunami, now aim here. Inspire others. You know, diverse cultures, discipline, possibility, ocean, connection. With ocean, the ocean.
So that was Dylan. I'm actually Mitchell. And I'm a scientist, specifically an oceanographer. And I just wanted to preface our talk by acknowledging that scientifically, climate change isn't a contentious issue. So the processes through which increased greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere lead to warming surface temperatures is basic climate physics. And we have the observational data to back this up, which is on the screens there. So this warming that you can see has many implications for the wider climate system. And we have observed, among other things, rising sea surface temperatures and rising sea levels, as well as more intense extreme weather events, such as droughts and floods. So because there is a clear scientific consensus that climate change is real, and that it is happening right now, the issue of climate change has moved beyond the realm of science and into the fields of economics, culture, and policy, where we can't afford to ignore what the science is telling us.
Tuvalu mo te atua, ko te whakawai sili, ko te ala whoki tēnā, o te manu ia kato, loto lasi o whai, tau malo sau loto. Imagine you bury a loved one, and decades later, their remains are swept away by the ocean. That's exactly what happened to my great-grandmother in Atahu Tokelau. How effective are the steps that you're taking now in mitigating the effects of climate change for my people? I also challenge the urgency of these steps and allowing my Tuvaluans and Tokelauans to adapt when they do migrate here to New Zealand. I stand as one, come as many. E tasi kai awhi.
Dou, dou, dou. We Pacific Islanders come from the largest ocean on Earth, and that is vulnerable, and that makes us vulnerable to sea level rise, tropical cyclones, and natural disasters. As a mother, I am predominantly concerned with the issues that climate change will have on my descendants, especially my son, Goloa, who is only 8 years of age. And I worry that his descendants will have no chance to step foot into my homeland, my atu whenua, the place where I was born and raised. It worries me that our Pacific people will have to abandon their homelands and find refuge in other countries and adapt to that society. Not only will we lose our indigenous heritage, but it will have a massive disruptive shift of losing our human race due to the continuous conflict and chaos of the overcrowdedness. Crime and its rates will increase significantly and effectively alter the genetics of our descendants.
To my baby sister, you were born on the 24th of May 2019, your home being Ovalau, Fiji. And what a blessing you are, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we have forgotten how to broaden our lens of compassion. I'm sorry that we have placed your island under threat without a safety net. I'm sorry we forgot that community should always be our foundation. Because how can politicians place a monetary value on saving our people? Baby girl, your island is sinking, and yet we're still thinking, considering, not acting. What you will see in your life scares me. What will it be like in your 2050? You were born on the 24th of May 2019. Your home being Ovalau, Fiji. And what a blessing you are, but I'm sorry. Because, baby girl, I don't know what it will take. Will it take thousands of people being displaced? What will it take for people to care that soon your land, your whenua, will disappear? I ask, what will it take?
God save our Solomon Island from shore to shore. Blessed as our people and all our lands, with your protecting hands. Our nation, Solomon Islands. I stand as one, but I come as many. Nā ko lea mai malate wane, ma ko teke o le te ana whigu. I stand as one, but I represent 669 people. Climate change is real, and it is bound to happen, and it is the biggest threat to mankind. Signs are around us, and it's so obvious. How are you so blind and so arrogant? This is not a political playground, and if you can't make a stand now, then when? A wise man once told me, a man's greatest fear is failure, and a man's greatest pain is regret. Thank you, Tomas.
Whakalofla atu ki Matolosi. Who am I? First off, let me step back and quote my brown brother, I am brown. Of course. But what else does that mean? Reading between the lines of stereotypes, thinking outside the box that my skin color says I shouldn't be able to do. Who am I? Yes, I am a Pacific Island youth. I stand strong as a Niuean male, yet I have had bullets of judgment inject my mind. I've had a knife made of stereotypes dissect my body. I've seen the actions of those who share my same race. Accept the fate that the privileged have already predetermined for them. So who are we? Are we nothing more than rugby players on a Saturday morning? Are we nothing more than singers in a gospel choir? Are we nothing more than a common statistic that has played out for the past 60 years? Will we be anything more? We see bands of brothers and sisters stand tall, singing and succeeding. With pride on their chests, yet they see us as those who would rather regret to set the statistics apart. So tūkilonga, whakamao, stand up, be strong. Because now the question isn't what we see through our eyes, it's what we feel in our souls. So let me ask you, who are you?
Education is the key to success. People will not make difference between right and wrong until they are educated. The idea of making climate change a compulsory subject within schools will lay the foundations of raising awareness and shaping behaviours of our young generation, who then will continue to educate their families, communities, islands. This action will normalise climate change conversations. Another avenue of education occurs within our communities. Our ancestors have paved the way for us to tala noa, to hold a conversation in an inclusive, receptive space. And for most of us, that common space is within our churches and our villages. We therefore need to utilise these platforms to draw forces closer together through sharing stories about climate change and educating one another. As a nation, it is vital to encourage further study and training within this area as the state of our world continues to change. Educating through a collective approach will have an impact across all levels and will create a stronger voice that will then be amplified nationally and globally. Use education to bring prosperity, unity, and build a stronger nation. Use education to protect our world. Awai sili le puipuia, nai lo'o le tonga pitia. It is better to prevent than it is to be treated.
Most importantly, I might want to state that I acknowledge how the New Zealand government is conducting such program because at the end of the day, my country, my homeland, my precious Samoan and all our neighboring countries are the genuine victims of climate change. Tonight, I would like to share with you something useful that I got from these past 2 days in this amazing program. Regarding to climate change, education is a key. Talking about solutions to solve the issues. In my view, education is not only a learning and teaching process. Education is not something that happens only in classrooms, but education is only complete when it comes to hand in hand with actions. As the saying goes, actions speak louder than words. Raising awareness. Proverbs 22 verse 6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it." I believe that if climate change is taught at an early age, it will be easier for the next generations to jump on board and join the movement. What I'm trying to say is, how about making climate change a subject in school? I mean, primary school. It will benefit everyone, as it will offer job opportunities too. You can become a teacher. Because many people are aware of what climate change is and its effect, not only on the environment, but it does affect social and economic too. My point is, people are too lazy to take action that is needed to be took ages ago to help save Mother Nature. But as one of the guest speakers stated yesterday, "Le whionga ia te ola." Generation today should come together to help raise awareness and work out solutions towards climate change, as they are the ones that are going to be affected by climate change. Because what is the use of issues? What is the use of solutions, ideas to climate change if we don't have a community to help out? A teamwork makes the dream work. I'll leave you with the Samoan proverbs. O le tele o lima, e mama ai se awenga. In English, many hands will get the job done easily. So forth.
New Zealand has been at the forefront of climate change aid to the Pacific for years. In education, New Zealand has helped countries like Tonga implement climate change studies into the curriculums, and I must express profound gratitude for that. However, very little progress has been made as the resources needed to engage students with the topic is not provided. There is an increasing feeling in the country of being left behind, and one word that echoes in everyone's minds is whakatamulu, which basically means a quick fix. We have people coming in to plant trees on our shores to help mitigate the effects of the ocean on our land, but little consideration is given to the circumstances in which these trees need to thrive. For example, mangroves need to be planted in a certain way and at a certain time of the year in order for it to thrive, and consequently, when this is not factored in, these trees wither away and it's like nothing had been done at all. Accordingly, we seek a more thoughtful and long-term approach in terms of the donations and the help that we are given. It is very often that after the target number of trees are planted and the reports are filed, the process ends there, ignoring the reality that these projects and programs need to be nurtured for months and years in order to succeed. Our island then tends to be left behind to deal with the issues these unsatisfying results bring. Leva leva malanga tua ofatu.
If I may ask the guests to close your eyes and take in the moment, why it is that we are here, what we are here for. Focus on your breathing and being present. My role as an artist is to navigate through the darkness and sail into the unknown waters that is climate change. But this isn't the first time our people have faced a task so monumental. We come from long lines of seafarers, navigators, and warriors. They made their biggest discoveries following the night skies. So be encouraged and be empowered. Our journey has not yet ended.
If our journey has not yet ended, what then does Aotearoa need to actually do to its responsibility in the Pacific? The answer must be rooted in Talanoa and includes serious climate finance for both adaptation and mitigation, in acknowledgement of the havoc Aotearoa's emissions are wreaking on Pacific communities. The current paradigm has failed. We need a fundamental rethink of Aotearoa's approach to the Pacific in the transparent and participative spirit of the Talanoa dialogue. The elites of Aotearoa have got rich from emissions-intensive industries, yet are now expecting developing nations, including the Pacific, to mitigate climate change with such drastic emissions cuts that 300 million people will be prevented from gaining access to power in India alone. Think about the climate justice ramifications for a second. Aotearoa's historic climate whakaaro is the very antithesis of climate justice and of Talanoa, more importantly. And in the meantime, Aotearoa's piddling emission reductions are currently consistent with a boiling 3-degree world, a temperature at which even Donald Trump would thaw out.
I want to pose a question for all of you to reflect as I do my speech, which is, what kind of ancestors are we becoming? On a global front, there is an ongoing amount of ideas which we can frame to help the subject of climate change. However, we as a nation, we as New Zealand, need to go back to the roots which made us who we are today. If not for New Zealand, then for the Pacific Islands. The promises of the treaty is not only vital in the conversation of climate change, but pivotal in the making of a new nationwide Indigenous mindset. We need to ensure the Indigenous ideology of living with the land, not on it, ensuring that the protection and nutrients of our whenua as it has done for us. Keeping the promises of the treaty ensures the protection, the rehabilitation that our land deserves. We as Māori and Pacific voyagers owe it to our ancestry roots to never stop in the fighting of their taonga, the taonga which they have passed down to us today to preserve and love, not to abuse for profit. What kind of ancestor are you becoming?
So what are you going to say at our funeral once you've killed us? Here lies the people who we once called warriors. Here lies the bodies of both drowning and the dead. Rest in pieces, my whānau, who I took for noises, most determined ancestors, who because of me, sleep evaded. Their gods listening, their oceans angry. Here heaven will be a future that could have been possible. Ashes to ashes, waves upon waves, dust to the Pacific.
To my grandchild, it's 2058. Is your voice being heard? Is climate change still threatening your way of life? You come from a long line of marginalized knowledge, a time where education ensures our perspectives were recognized and have mana. Education is a powerful tool, a crucial social mechanism that has hopefully saved your generation.
Child, you are sitting in the year 2058. Tell me, do you know the past of our cultures being displaced? Because the possibilities of the future can be shaped by our past. Climate change has a multi-dimensional impact. Did they teach you that in class? The taking of land from our Aboriginal brothers and sisters, the native Indian American people and those with Māori ancestors, crimes and followed revolts, majority left unresolved. Land should be given back, unless by then the Pacific is no longer a place we can go. A healthy culture is connected to a healthy land. Be aware that social issues and climate change will arise hand in hand. An influx of displacement will come with an unchanged road. Connections to cultures would be lost when our people no longer have a physical home. Did people act in your past because to sit back is to not care? Was there a repeat of social consequences? Were the leaders of your time prepared? So child, you are sitting in the year 2058. Now tell me, in the future, are our cultures still being displaced?
Te moko puna. Is climate change still an uprising issue faced by your society till today? Does it still exist and not being solved yet? And are you part of contributing to that issue, or are you part of a solution? Remember, your contribution to such good cause is vital to the issue regarding integrating Indigenous knowledge instilled within you around discussions about climate change. Indigenous knowledge operates at a much finer spatial and temporal scale than science, and it includes understanding of how to cope with and adapt to environmental variability and trends. Don't lose your identity, your sense of self, your connection to the nature, as you are surrounded by modernized ways of living. Take upon yourself to act. Shout out that knowledge that is instilled within you. Hold on to it, infuse it in yourself, and pass down and make sure it is not fizzled out.
Sad, disconnected, alone, and ashamed. How would you feel if you lost your culture? How would you feel if you lost your island, your country, your identity? How would you feel seeing your own grandchild debating in 2058 if they should have a family or not because of what the world has become? How would you feel seeing your own child or grandchild leaving this country, their island, their home, to be a migrant in another country? How would you feel because of climate change? How? Dear us, dear me, dear you, here we are standing together as 1 + 1 = 2 or 3 or more to make a difference within climate change in order to make the world a better place. Dear grandchild, dear child, please hold on. Please don't feel ashamed or sad or lost because of our mistakes of not attempting to protect Te Tatu Ipukarea, Te Tatu Inua. Now our land, we will keep trying to make this world a better place and heal it for me, for you, and for us. KiMuaNZ.
My grandchild. The decisions made today are determining the future. I will not waste precious time fighting for a climate emergency, a band-aid solution wrapped in empty political promises in the hope of re-election. Your future does not rest on reusable straws and keep cups, but on a systemic shift where the knowledge of our ancestors and voices of our people are actively included in decision-making. I will fight to amplify our Pacific voices, to create opportunities for our mātauranga to be recognised and valued in policy, legislation and action. Because, my darling grandchild, the path we are currently on is inflicting hurt and loss on our people.
When I was putting my thoughts down on paper today, it just didn't feel right. When you've been surrounded by the vulnerabilities of climate change for so long, how do you pinpoint it to just one issue that you challenge a room full of people with? When I look at your faces in the crowd today, those visiting us who have been doing this workshop for the last number of days, I'm reminded that New Zealand's attitude towards climate change is that we are global leaders. Very recently at the United Nations COP24, New Zealand put its hand up to be a leader in the talk around agriculture, particularly methane, and that we could aid other countries in facilitating talks and how we can better strategize to alleviate those effects. When we're still domestically having issues on how we can actually become more ambitious, how we can get those emissions down to zero. I feel a lot of faith when I look at my brothers and sisters to my left and my right, knowing that we're going to keep pushing that mahi and we're going to keep pushing that waka in the right direction as leaders. I guess I'll leave you with this challenge. As leaders in the waka that we're sailing, do we know if that waka that we're trying to recruit people to get onto is actually sailing the right direction? Thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear us crying? Are you listening to the amplify while you listen and understand. You know, they say actions speak louder than words. This year, without action, I really hope it is speaking loud enough and clear enough to see how much it change, how important it is. I stand here as one, I come here.
Malolava. In this century, climate change can be achieved through the unity of multicultural assimilation. Assimilating to adapt and mitigate our sectors. Assimilate to integrate and adopt policies. Assimilate to combine Eastern and Western philosophies in our current learning and education. No more one-sided view or one-sided reliance should be depended on when it comes to this emerging crisis. For that our generation, our new generation, grow up in a diverse society, we must come to an understanding to find commonalities, having shared relationships, mutual trust between our communities. This will lead our near-term goals to conquer our long-term goals. If properly applied, it can provide a global framework that enables our global leaders to handle this new wave of critical uncertainties. There comes a consequence to assimilation. Multiculturalism is the most dangerous liberal progressive spin ever drafted, that it has and will violate the sovereignty of nations. This is not new, whether it is Aotearoa or the Pacific. Unity of understanding the core and could be achieved by this indoctrinated diasporas, meaning people coming together with the same interests, ideas, beliefs collectively as a global community.
It is imperative for climate change to be at the top of lawmaking priorities, only achieved by enabling Pacific voices to lead the lawmaking processes of this nation. This is how we begin to enforce regulations for targeted emissions, by recognizing that the best way for law to efficiently address a problem that is affecting Pacific communities is if it is formed with Pacific leadership. Martin Luther King said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Climate change is not the issue of our time for Pasifika. Climate change is the injustice of our time for all people. Maloa pita.
Climate change is no longer some far-off problem. It is happening here, it is happening now. Barack Obama. Our laws, policies and actions for climate change need to ensure communities are at their very core. I'm a Waikato born, bred girl. Rural communities are at my heart and home, and I've heard their fears in regards to climate change about loss of livelihood, heritage and purpose. But these are shared fears by our Pacific communities. This shows it's not one community afraid, it is a collective fear. Climate change isn't individual, it affects many. New Zealand is a part of the Pacific. We are one region, and this is all of our problem. I do not want the scenario of in 2058, Pacific communities are a part of New Zealand because their homes and communities were fractured and torn apart because of New Zealand's lack of leadership for climate change. Our rural communities have a responsibility to be leaders. We know that we are a part of the problem. We have time to change. Our Pacific nations do not. Are we willing to keep one community at a constant, unchanged, at the cost of 100 others?
Talofa lava, my name is Angelica Tobia, and to be quite honest, I'm discouraged and I'm exhausted. I have struggled immensely to encapsulate everything that is happening in my head in regards to this global issue. So please bear with me as I attempt to project a piece of my heart and soul to you. I am a proud daughter of a Samoan migrant stream. The blood that flows through my veins is that of warriors and voyagers who conquered and thrived. Yet here I am standing in front of you, feeling discouraged and disempowered. Climate change has its foot on the neck of my people. And with every day that passes, our pulse falters. Ole malanga e whaianga. E timu ia. A journey that is delayed will encounter rain. This journey, without a doubt, is the most challenging battle that my people will have to face, but it is critical for our survival. The Samoan culture is heavily rooted in our land. It is the gatekeeper to our traditions, customs, and our language. We need to act now. Time and wave doesn't wait for nobody, and it definitely will not wait for our small nation. Our homelands lack resources and knowledge, but we are rich in resilience, determination, passion, and love, as you can see by my brothers and sisters who surround me. So for my ancestors, for my future descendants, I will fight. I just ask that you back me up and support me.
E tō mātou mātua i te rangi. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Climate change may come, but your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day a daily feast of sweetbreads and palusami, of puke maika and of ikamata. Give us the hula dance and the siva Samoa. Give us our forefathers' secrets of moana, of where to fish during the mating season, and the knowledge of how important coral is to sustaining and maintaining the ecosystem. Give us the memory of the popo, our coconut tree, which connects us all, where every aspect of the tree is sustainable. The leaves are for roofing, the trunk is for timber, and the sweet, sweet nectar is for sustenance. Thank you, Father, for creating the Pacific people. Lord, our cultures are so important to cultivate and to actively appreciate, especially within New Zealand, Aotearoa, because it is undoubtedly within our own cultures that the knowledge for fighting climate change lies and exists. Let us act now to preserve disappearing cultures, to educate the next generation for a more sustainable future. E tuatou uatu. In Jesus' name, let all the people say, Amen. Kia ora tātou.
Malolele. This poem is titled, Ignoring Climate Change is Pacific Genocide. The Sami screams at me to siva Samoa for her. The ocean asks me to salu the high tides and all of its plastic Pasifika. Polluted hues, salt-shaken blues will dehydrate her kin. The Sami screams at me to make coffee with her waters. Maybe then her hierarchy will wake up, drown in some sense. The ocean, her children will run across derelict sand dunes, leap into her arms. Oil-dipped, broken, bleached coral shells skip her grandchildren's spines to backstab them. Ignoring climate change is Pacific genocide. Ignoring climate change is Pacific genocide. Ignoring climate change is Pacific genocide. This will be the dusk of colonial dawns, migrant dreams, family, ainga, kainga, whānau, whānau. And although it is not the rising ocean that will kill the kin, it is the deaf ears who land the falls of screams, of the Sami, of the ocean. Malo au people.
Ai o te lei tautala, o te whia moai awelevi inga malpaptai le atua. Mo le nei awanoa wa mātou maua, e tautala I le nei mata upu whaingata on the climate change. So what do we need you to focus on? Education. In the workshop, I've been exposed to so much information and opportunities that I didn't even know existed before. That to me says we're not doing enough to let everyone know that climate change exists and that it is severe. Back home in South Auckland, I use my Instagram to see the opinions of young Pacific people on climate change. And all they really know is that the sea level is rising. But how can they grasp the full effect of climate change if they don't know everything about it and are not moved to do more if they don't know more? Everyone is expecting my people to act on something that they don't fully understand. We all hold knowledge that must be passed on. So I urge you to make more of an effort to share your knowledge and to expose my Pacific people to that, so we have no excuse to not know, because even the homeless man on the streets of Mangere will know about climate change and he will do his bit, because every bit helps and it matters right now for everyone. So incorporate it into the education curriculum. Travel to places to educate and connect to my people. Hold more Pacific climate change conferences and make it known. Share your knowledge in a simple conversation. Our people need to know in order to empower the rest. Don't just educate and consult the worthy or the capable. Aim to educate and consult everyone.
Maloni, my name is Sulu Danielle. Before coming and joining this workshop, we were asked if we could talk to our descendants in 2058 what we hope to tell the world, tell them about what the world has done in relation to climate change. And my reply was, if I can talk to my descendants on my beloved Tokelau in 50 years, that will be a testament in itself that we did something to prevent climate change. I see that the New Zealand response is already prominent in our museums. They're already accepting artifacts from my home as our response to climate change, to preserve our culture rather than preserving our land already. I want us to not give up, because we can't fail. Let us not be a memory in a museum, but let it be a snapshot of who we are still in the Pacific. Let not Tokelau be a sacrificial lamb for us to start acting, because we can and we must act now. As great as it is, in Tokelau we have 100% solar-powered energy, but we need to do it on scales where it really matters. My people alone, we do not have much mission, but if we were to move it to a scale like New Zealand, oh, the glory. How much we would be able to slow it down or even, dare I say it, reverse it. Climate change, if it were to affect Tokelau, it doesn't just rise above our land. It doesn't just take our land, but it also takes our culture, it takes our language, and it takes our identity. So let Tokelau not be the sacrifice. There is no room for failure. We can and we must act now. Wa we tū tautahi kai o mai he Tokelahi. Sorry, I stand as one, but I come as many.
Kia rana tātou katoa. I descend from the prestigious country, nation of the Cook Islands. The Cook Islands is a small island developing state comprising of 15 small islands with an exclusive economic zone of nearly 2 million square kilometre in the South Pacific Ocean. Globally, the Cook Islands contribute less than 0.1% of greenhouse gas emission, which is an insignificant amount relative to the global emission. However, collectively, the consequences of the global emission via climate change is destructive to ecosystems, infrastructures, economy, and therefore the livelihoods of Cook Islanders. We want to enjoy the highest quality of life and harmony with our culture and environment. And in order for that to achieve that goal, there is need for substantial support and finance. To provide and cater for climate change related events, I believe in order to implement these changes, we need your continuous support. Without any support and belief from behind, we will never move forward. Kia ora e kia manuia.
Nisa Bola Vinaka. As a group, we mapped out different scenarios of what the future would look like. And I think by now you could tell that most of it wasn't a positive outcome. The only thing that we can do to combat climate change now is to do something radical, something revolutionary. In my field, we say that innovation and entrepreneurship is one solution, but we cannot rely on one individual to solve a world problem. I'm a Pasifika entrepreneur. Natively in my values, we value the relationship with people over profit. Translated that into business, this showcases what is needed, where we don't have to always gain a financial gain from the needs of others, but instead focus our businesses on creating value. Just like the trade war between America and China, New Zealand and the Pacific must stand united and declare war on climate. I may be standing here as one. I aim to provide for the many.
Business as usual has led us to where we are right now. Our current frameworks don't work, and we can see that. And an example of this is reflected in the ETS. Our emissions trading scheme basically gives our companies and our government a right to keep polluting our planet for the benefit of economic gain. My nation, Fiji, is experiencing the raw reality of this today. As a collective Governor-General, we need to shift our way of thinking and start approaching the root causes more holistically. To do this, we must challenge our systems and pressure those that are in power to listen to our voices, my voice. We need aggressive change-making policies that will transform Aotearoa and our Pacific neighbours to adapt for a risk-resilient society that will be future-proofed for many generations to come. I challenge all of you here to get involved with local government and our communities because our lives and lineage depends on it. Vinaka Vakaleki.
Mahi a te mahi, he painga mo te iwi. Governor General, distinguished guests, leaders of the church, the past couple of days, me and my fellow revolutionaries from the Pacific have had an insight and a chance to hear from people at the table of power, so to speak. And we couldn't help but feel the feeling of your mother coming home after working a 12-hour shift and asking you, why isn't the house clean? Because nothing's been done. To the people of power, or at that table, we ask, is the work you're doing to toe the party lines or lifting the bottom margins, is it worth it? We heard a story from a 10-year-old out from Porirua. His only wish was to grow older so that he could go back home and swim. But from the news back home, his chances are unlikely. To my revolutionaries, we were told heaps throughout the last couple of days to have faith, have hope. But as the good book says, faith without work is dead. Hence why I say at the start, mahi a te mahi, he painga mo te iwi. Do the work for the betterment of the community.
Some say it's our saving glory. Zero carbon bill. Why does our battle still feel uphill? Oceans are rising, surely and steady. The question remains, is our government ready? Ready for what? Ready to pay the full price of compassion. Key word, full, not a half-assed ration. The debating chamber, all I hear is talk. Remember that while you are thinking my islands are sinking, what is the cost of more aid? A group of small islands with little to trade. I wonder why. Phosphate mining, you took from us, and now that we ask, some of you are hiding. My people of chingy eyes and brown complexion, does New Zealand value our social connection? The world has angered Mother Earth. It's too late for passive policy because it won't stop nature's ferocity in time. Please act strongly before others share this fate of mine. One final question, Aotearoa. My people or your profits, which do you value more? Kampesindapa.
Talafalava. In terms of addressing the issue of climate change,
We want the New Zealand government to work collectively with the Pacific Island countries. We want New Zealand to engage with our Pacific communities, to understand the Pacific values, and to hear the Pacific voices on what we have to say about climate change. There is no use in the implementation of policies, the introduction of bills, technology, tools, and initiatives in addressing climate change if there is no collectivism between New Zealand and the Pacific Island countries. We believe that without collectivism, New Zealand cannot move forward as a country in terms of tackling climate change. And a Samoan proverb comes to mind which goes, "O lupe sa vau ese ese, a o le nei ua fuifui whaatasi." And this proverb can be used in terms of climate change, that although we are scattered throughout the Pacific Ocean and come from diverse backgrounds, if there is an issue, and in this case is climate change, we need to come together and we need to face it together as a collective. Whakatai.
When asked to say a few words, we often begin by acknowledging our Heavenly Father. Why? Because we live by the saying, "E whaavai lea tua Samoa." Samoa is founded on God. We commonly use our belief and faith in order to logically explain the obvious changes in the environment that we see now. When a tsunami occurs, many elders say, "Oh, God is coming," or "This is God's punishment on us." I believe that there are many missing and misunderstood knowledge which has influenced this way of thinking. So the problem is, how do we educate people who have a rock-solid belief in order to tell them that there are other aspects that are negatively affecting our environment?
My ancestors weep for the sea they used to know, for the land that used to grow, and their children they want to hold. The child weeps for the shores they'll never touch, the tongue that becomes none, and the connection they've lost. I weep for the measina you attempt to store, the dollar you put on the life of a tour, the dollar you use to measure our worth, to let us sink or swim, thrive or wave goodbye, ready or not. What do you weep for? What will it take to make you listen, to make you stay awake? My people are screaming, and the cries have been heard, but listening isn't enough. We want our lives restored. As I stand before you now, from a line richer than paper, with the sea to my knees, will you value the shoulders I stand on? Will you too weep for our pleas? Ia manuia te le nei po, tala au I le langi e mama, ma le soifo maua. Whata lava.
They say if you don't get a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu. But guess what? We brought our own seat. Climate change isn't a news story, and with the changes that are being made, or the lack thereof, the same story could potentially be repeated time and time again. What we don't need is the retelling of the same story. What we desperately need is a plot twist. And if me, a young Ranui kid, speaking in this space, amplifying the pleas of a collective doesn't add to the start of this plot twist, then tell me what will. If I may be so bold, we can't keep taking the same futile approaches and expect a different result. We must recognise the value in Indigenous practice and the potential of co-design rather than stakeholder engagement. Pacific Indigenous adaptations inform risk responses. They close the gaps that your scientists can't. It's just a matter of finding the medium to articulate these Indigenous ways of knowing in policy and in action. I could stand here and go on about Indigenous innovation and spiritual connections that could inform science behind mitigating climate change, but I won't. So I'll challenge you to find out for yourself. You want potential solutions? Go to the Pacific. Take people other than those of MPP. Collaborate with Ali'i, the locals, and those who aren't sitting behind the safety of their desk, making executive decisions on our behalf. and find out for yourself. Indigeneity coupled with science could proffer more than you can imagine, more than anybody in Parliament or anybody that has started now could imagine. Whakasaira.
I am scared. I'm scared that my children will not be able to bury their toes in the sand that my nana once stood on. I'm scared that the opportunities that the world once showed the Pacific were at the detriment to the Pacific itself. I'm scared that the value of the Pacific is not valued, and that the culture within it will be diluted by the unconscious deformity of relocation in Western culture. I'm scared we are not doing everything we can. I'm scared that the people of the Pacific depends on all of us. I'm not scared of climate change. I'm hopeful of the strength and unity that can bring and the power that it has. But that involves you. I'm not scared of climate change. I'm scared of you.
Dear Mother Nature, for centuries we have recklessly roamed on your spine, sucked the minerals of your mammary gland until they run dry, consistently shredding your sternum until you bleed. Our never-ending pleasure we must feed. For all of that and much more, I know we are sincerely sorry. Sorry for turning our music louder whenever we hear you sob, because your inner soul we continue to inconsiderably touch. Sorry for the continuity of injection of toxic chemicals in your veins. Above all, we are immensely sorry for our empty words when we promised years ago that we were going to change. Sorry for snatching your innocence the very moment we met, from the eroding of your beautiful skin to the poisoning of your breath. Your final memory will be that final wave, the wave by climate change that your own offspring single-handedly create. And for that, I am deeply sorry. Pasifika o le tangi le pumate ma le taulongolongo ma se fau. Ia amana ia mai le aungan yatu o le whanau. Tautua nā, o tātou lau whanua, na malingi whaawai le toto na o tātou tua a hanamua. O le tatalo le au auna whatau waa. Ata ape le fuamansina, ia lele le manu masanai. Manu tale ina le nea fiafi, ai ola le au auna whatau waa. Soifua.
O ku iai ai palau veape o la tonga pehe. O whangota ki he kato awa. While you have all the skills and the right attitude, if you do not look after the basic needs, you will fail. Ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters have come to the end of their presentation, but I want to remind you that we stand before you, diverse, passionate, brave, bold, strong, determined, with a unified heart and mind to move the currents of climate solutions. But we cannot achieve this alone. What we need are leaders who do not part the sea for us to leave our homes, heritage, and identities, but connect with us as a great ocean of people that long for our mana and our future to flow together. Malo Alpito, Dame Patty Reddy, distinguished guests, McGuinness Institute, and all those who have enabled us today for tomorrow. Tua o whātua.
Ti aho maira, te whetu o te ata, ko pui te rau, are aru i te pō, ka tū te amarama, e ara, tu maira koe hei tohu i aho.
gained and wisdom that my brothers and sisters have shared with you, that we can work together to make a better future for us in our islands and everyone that comes. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.